Today we are having a look at the Gene Café CBR-301 coffee roaster with a simple but proven technology for home coffee roasters. I'm Ingo from Roast Rebels, and now let's go. Gene Café has been developing coffee roasting machines for home roasters since many years. They are very popular, they are very proven, they are simple, but the machines are working well and people are happy with the coffees they are producing. And now they have added the 301 to their lineup, which is a machine that is in basic the same roasting technology that has been used by the 101 machine for years now, maybe it's even decades. And they have improved some parts, especially they have added an app with which you can have more settings, have a bit more control on the roasting machine. And now I'm going to show you in detail what's about this machine, how it's working. And first of all, we start with the basic technical information about it. It's a coffee roasting machine for 100 to 300 grams of coffee. Gene Café, the manufacturer, says that you can roast washed coffees up to 300 grams. If you're roasting naturals, the maximum is 240 grams. This is what's being said in the manual. The minimum amount is 100 grams. And the way this machine is working is with a hot airflow that is going from one side of the machine to the other one. It's taking about 1500 watts maximum, so you can plug it in any household plug. It's taking about the same amount of energy as a hairdryer. The machine is very light, it weighs about 7.5 kilos, and it can be put anywhere and then also put on your standard household plug. So it's very simple, mobile, and able to be used anywhere that you like. The machine is really made for home coffee roasters. It is very affordable. At the same time, it gives you coffee in a really nice quality. I don't recommend it as a sample roaster or production roaster, on one hand due to the capacity of maximum 300 gram, minimum 100 gram, which is really the range where home roasters are working with. For sample roasters you often have with smaller amounts, for production roaster higher amounts. And what's also to be known is the machine doesn't have that precise readability and control that you need, for example, then when you do sample roast of really delicate samples. So I would really recommend it to people that want to have a nice experience of coffee roasting at home. And I'm going to then show you in detail what are the controls and the functions that you have with this machine so that you understand this maybe a little bit more. But before that, the general way this machine is working and what the Gene Café machines are doing, they are roasting coffee mainly with a flow of hot air. So you have actually here, when you open the machine, a roasting chamber, which is continuously turning to the roast so that you have no scorching, so the beans are evenly roasted during the roast. And on this side of the machine, you have an air intake and you have a blower and a heater. So you can imagine a bit like a really strong hairdryer, which is on this side of the machine, which is then blowing the air through this chamber, turning the chamber at the same time. And then on the other side of the machine, the air is being taken. You have here a thermocouple. So let's have a look here a bit closer to the machine. So you can see here the thermocouple of the machine. And then on this side of the machine, there is the exhaust where the air is coming out of the machine. You also have then here a little drawer to collect the chuffs. So a really simple setup in that perspective. And for you to understand, due to the way the machine is constructed, you don't really have directly a temperature measurements at the place where the beans are moving. You are measuring the temperatures of the beans that are getting out of the roaster. So it's a little bit of a mixture between bean temperature and then also the exhaust air temperature. So this is just for you to understand. You have a way to measure the temperature and control the temperature, but it's not the same precision that you have, for example, in a drum coffee roaster or in a classic fluid bed roaster when you have the thermocouple directly where the beans are moving. So if you have a look at the controls that you have on this machine, you have two knobs that you can turn and press. With one, you are setting the temperature. So when the maximum temperature that you have set on this knob is reached, then the roast will be stopped automatically. I would actually personally recommend you to stop the roast manually when you see with your eye where the color has been reached of your roast. And the second button that you have is the target temperature. So the Gene Café doesn't directly allow you to control then the heat application. The way is more that you set a target temperature and then the machine is heating with full power until it reaches this target temperature, and once it has the target temperatures it goes on and off, so it cycles on and off to hold this temperature then at this point. That means that you cannot really do this super precise way of profiling, or it's a little bit of a workaround because you can then set target temperatures and be all the time at the machine and change these target temperatures, but this is quite a lot of work. What you then usually do in practical roasting is that you play around with the heat application by the amount of coffee that you put in the machine, but this is something that I'm going to explain you just in a second. I just want to add two things, because now with this machine you have also the option to not only control it here at the buttons, but also connect it to an app. And in this app, if you control the machine through the app, you have two more things that you can control. And one of these is the strength of the airflow. So you can do the airflow a bit higher or a bit lower. This means the speed with which the air is going through the machine. And the other thing that you can influence is the turning speed of the machine. So the machine is all the time turning, and you can do this a bit slower and a bit faster. So most probably when you go into roasting or get into roasting, you will at the first time concentrate on the two aspects that are the most important for the taste of the coffee that is coming out. And this is on one hand the choice of the green coffee beans, and then also the color of the roasted coffee. These are two things that you can perfectly control in this machine. Of course, choose different green coffee beans and then roast them until they reach a certain color, which you can see in this really beautiful window here, which is a big advantage of the Gene Café roaster. Then the second thing you usually are going to have a look at when you want to deep dive a little bit more into roast control or like a taste of the coffee is then how fast or slow you are going to roast. And this is something, as said, which is a little bit difficult to control on the Gene Café roaster due to the way it is then controlling by setting the target temperature. So what I usually do in order to achieve a bit a faster or a slower roast, because these are aspects that have an influence on the taste as well, is I'm going to play around with the amount of beans I'm putting in the roaster. So imagine if you put in 150 grams in the same machine, work with the same settings, then the roast is much faster than if you put, for example, 250 grams. And one general rule is, for example, if you want to have this espresso roast, which has a bit more body, which has a bit more complexity, which has maybe a little bit more of these sweet notes, then you often do a bit a slower roast. So you maybe put in a bit more beans. If you want to have more clarity, more specialty roast, like filter roasts with a bit more florality, then you often take a bit faster roast. So then in that case, you might take a little bit less beans so that the whole roast is faster. Then when it comes to the two other aspects, the drum speed and the airflow speed in the machine, which you can control with the app, here we don't yet have too many information about the Gene Café because it's quite new, the concept, and I haven't played around with it too much. There is also not so much to find out, but things or ideas I want to give you in order to play around with it is when it comes to the speed of the turning of the drum. This is often related in drum roasters to the application of convective versus conductive heat energy. So the slower the drum is turning, the longer the beans are on the hot material, which is here in the glass or together with the other hot beans. So you have a bit more of this conductive, so this direct heat transfer. And the more the beans are then jumping into the air, so a bit faster you are roasting, the more you have then convective heat transfer, which is a very effective heat transfer that is giving them a bit more of a clarity in the roast. And then the other thing about the airflow speed through the machine, This is then often related to the efficiency of the heat transfer. So imagine the faster you're putting the air through the machine, the less you have the possibility then to transfer heat from the blower to the beans, the more you are even then taking out heat of the system. So you might play around with these two aspects, but at the moment I cannot give you more details, so it's really then up to you to experiment, and this is actually then the fun part about coffee roasting. But just not to confuse you, at the first point you will just start by putting in the beans, reaching a certain target temperature, roasting them for a certain time, and then you will already have beautiful results. You find quite a big community on Gene Café roasters out there with which you can exchange profiles and knowledge about the roasting. Let's have a look at the different parts of this machine. So here, this is a bit covered by this cover, but in here you would see a fan, like a blower fan, and a heating element, which is then putting the hot air into the system. It's taking the air from this side of the machine, so make sure that when you're roasting, you always have free space around the machine. Make also sure that you always have fresh air, that you're in a good ventilated place when you're roasting coffee. Then you have here the roasting chamber itself, where you are going to put in the beans on the top. Then you're going to close this, put it in the machine. The air is flowing through this roast chamber. On this side, I've showed you before, here is then the air outlet, where you have the thermocouple. And on this side of the machine, you can find then the so-called chaff collector. In most cases, you just take out this little drawer. If ever you want to clean the chaff collector, you can take it out on the side. And here you see the air is flowing to this chaff collector. It has here a mesh to hold back the chaff so that you are landing here in this drawer. And then up here, the air is coming out through this little knob. So here you have the exhaust of the air. You can take it, for example, in a kitchen vent or somewhere where the air then or the smoke is getting out of your room. Then one thing you can see here is the safety cover. This has always to be closed when coffee roasting. Once this is open, then the machine is stopping, is functioning. With the previous machine, the 101, you just had then the machine to stop, and people were a bit confused what's happening now. Here with the 301, it's a bit simpler, because when it's open, you see here then an error code which is saying, door is open, please close the door to continue roasting. The maintenance of this machine is super simple. All you have to do is always after each roast, take out the chaffs, so empty this drawer. From time to time, take off the chaff collector, as I did it before, to clean it a bit, and then also keep the roast chamber clean. That's all you have to do. One thing that you need to know about the Gene Café roaster, they're very durable. We hardly ever have any issues with them. The only thing that is sometimes happening where people get issues is if they operate the machine without this chamber in it. So sometimes people are starting machine, they don't have the chamber in it. And then you can then melt some parts in the machine. These parts are maybe made in a way that they can be usually easily replaced, but it's just something you have to be careful of to prevent, because this is an issue that sometimes people get with this machine and they're a bit frustrating. So always keep the roasting chamber in the machine. Make sure it is really fixed, it clicked here before you start roasting with the machine. One thing we learned from experience with the Gene Café roaster is that the built-in cooling is often a bit slow because the chamber is still hot, so it takes a bit too long, and in coffee roasting we want to have a fast cooling of the beans. According to the manual, you're going to cool the beans inside the machine, but what I prefer to do is that when I finish the roast, I press on stop. I wait until the chamber is here in the position that I can take it out easily. Then I put the beans in a cooling vent, which is also offered by Gene Café, and cool the beans separately here, put the chamber back, go into the cooling cycle. That's important that you always go in the cooling cycle for the longevity of the machine, but I'm going to cool then the beans outside to have a faster cooling cycle and increase the quality of the beans. So that's it about the machine. Now I would say we go into a roast cycle so that I can show you everything about the machine. So ready for roasting. And first thing you are going to do is switch on your machine so that you have power. And then you are going to take your smartphone, open the Gene Café app, which you can download in Play Store or App Store if you have an Android phone or an iPhone. And then here in the app, you will see, you have the possibility to do some settings like language, color, and so on. But what you are going to do is press on Connect Device. The machine needs to be on, Bluetooth needs to be on. And then you can see your machine, which you are going to connect. And with a little beep, you hear that the device is connected. So before you go into roasting, you have to make sure to check that there is no chaff left in your drawer. I have now some chaff from a previous roast. Take this out. And then put the drawer back. And what I'm going to do now is, now before I do any settings, I fill in beans into my roast chamber. So I have here 250 grams of a washed coffee from Honduras. Put this in, and then I take the roast chamber. Then I'm going to put it in the machine in that way that the cover is directed to the outlet of the bean. So put it here, close it, and then I can go here to the settings. So what I can see here is the possibility to set a particular time or to set a target temperature. I can do this directly on the machine, or I can do it on the app. So now I switch back to the app, and I can see here the tab Roasting. In Roasting, I see the current temperature. Then I can see here the mode, which is called Finish mode. Here I have the possibility to change between time or temp. So give the machine the decision where to stop the roast, when it reached the time or when it reached the temperature. Then I have a target time. So I set, by the way, the finishing to time. But when I do a target time, I set this quite high because I don't want to let the machine stop itself at the reached time. So I want to do a manual stop. I want to decide myself when I stop it. Therefore, I just put a high enough time to prevent the machine from stopping the roast too early. Then I have a target temperature. So as I explained before, the machine will now then heat with full power until it has reached this target temperature, and then it will hold the temperature when it reached this. I am now going to start the roast, and then I'm going to show you the settings of fan speed and motor speed. But now I would say we are going to start the roast, but this is something that I cannot do directly from the app. But for safety reason, I have then to switch over manually to my machine and press the button to start the process. Now you can see the functioning of the machine. So you see that there is the roasting chamber which is continuously turning, and you can feel here that there is air coming out. Of course, this is going to be hot, so don't do that then in full roasting mode. You will also see that this cover has always to be closed. If it's open, then you get an error message. So this has always to be closed. And when we are now having a look at the app, we can see that the current temperature is increasing, like 99, 100 degrees. We can see the roasting time. And then on the left side, we see this graph. So you see the red line, which is then the temperature reading just in relation to time. So you see it's now approaching 120 degrees Celsius. You can see that on the right side with current temp, or here on the graph. Then the blue line is the so-called rate of rise, which is indicating a temperature increase per 30 seconds, which is now somewhere around 30 degrees Celsius, that the temperature is increasing in 30 seconds. And then on the graph below, I can see the settings of the fan and the motor. So as I told you before, I can change the fan speed, make the fan blow a bit higher or blow a bit lower. So this is something that I can set during the roast in 3 steps. And the other thing that I can set is the motor speed, so I can let the motor turn a bit slower or a bit faster. I go now on setting number 3. And now I just let the machine do its work. And what you can see here directly on the machine in the display, which is similar to what you've seen in the app, you see on the right side the time that has been in the roast. So it's now 2 minutes in the roast. There's 22.5 minutes as a total target time. And then here on the left side, the same in temperature. So you see we have now 165 degrees Celsius and the target temperature is 245. This is then something, both time and temperature, that I can continuously change here directly on the machine. So let's say I go for example now to 250. And when I switch over to the app, I see this has also been changed on the app, so I can change it either directly in the app or on the machine, however I like. And now I just let the machine do its work and run until we reach then first crack. You can see now that we have reached 200 degrees Celsius, that the machine is giving a signal and is indicating that we need to press the button in order to show the machine that we are directly next to the machine. This is a safety function. If we don't press the button, then the machine will go directly into cooling mode. So you can see we are now at 237 degrees Celsius and the beans are already quite brown. And you can see that the temperature is continually increasing on the bean. This is something that we want to achieve in coffee roasting. So at the beginning we have a bit a steeper curve, then it's going to be a bit flatter, but it should never be then even. So you should never then stop increasing the temperature of the beans, because otherwise you're having the risk that the beans are not being roasted but baked and you get a bland taste, papery taste. So it has always to be increasing, but the longer it gets, the slower the increase is. 2 times in the roast we had this safety switch coming at 200 degrees Celsius and 230 degrees Celsius, where the buttons were blinking. I had to press the buttons in order to make sure that the machine knows that somebody is next to the machine. If I wouldn't have pressed the button at that point, then the roast would have finished and the machine would have gone into cooling mode. So I see I'm now reaching about 250 degrees. I still want my beans to increase in temperature. I don't want it to stay at 250 degrees Celsius. So I go up until 260. 260 is the maximum. And I increase the target temperature so that the temperature is still going to be increased. What I'm now hearing are the pops of the first crack. This sounds a little bit like popcorn. So I'm now going to mark first crack, which is an important point in coffee roasting, because here I'm now getting into the development phase of the bean. I already see that the coffee beans are really beautiful chocolatey brown, and now I can decide myself on how light or dark I want to develop this roast. These beans that I'm having here, these Honduras squash beans, is a quality of beans that I don't want to roast too dark. I want to make a cappuccino out of it, but a lighter one. So I'm going to stop it, let's say in about 30 seconds when the first crack pops have stopped. Now if I want to stop the roast, I have 2 options. Either I'm going to press on cooling on the app, and then the beans are being cooled directly in the machine, and I'm going to wait until they are then cooled down to room temperature. Or I can also press then the cooling here on the left button. Or what I am going to do, because I'm going to cool the beans externally, is I'm going to press the button twice until it stops. I have to wait until the drum is stopping, so never open or take them out before when they're stopped. And it's good to have a barbecue glove or something. I take this out, open them, and put the beans in this external cooler. And what's really important now is to put the chamber back. Just make sure that you don't burn your fingers and that you go again into cooling mode and that you let the machine cool down, because this is important for the quality and for the longevity, durability of the machine, that you let it cool down. Now also empty with the roast chamber in it. And here I'm letting my beans being cooled down. When I switch over to the app now, I can save this roast. I can give it a name. So let's say Honduras video. I can say which beans I have used. Honduras. So I put in 250 grams. I don't know yet, because they're still cooling, how much beans are coming out, but let's assume I would have now, for example, 225 grams of beans that are coming out. Roast level maybe like medium. So I can save that. Now it's saved, roasting is finished. And what I can do is, so saving the profile, I can go to my roasting, and here I see it again. I see weight loss 10%. Well, it's going to be a bit more. Maybe the grams that I take out when I measure them will be somewhere around 220 grams. So I can see here the roast. I can see when the first crack appeared. I then can see where I stopped the roast. I can put some notes, and I can send this profile or this roast then also to a friend, so that he can have a look at it himself, for example, on WhatsApp. And that's actually it. So I let everything being cooled down. The beans are already like on room temperature. And so I did my first roast on the Gene Café 301. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you're interested in the machine, then head over to our website, roasttravels.com. We have free shipping in Europe. We offer service. We have a service center in Europe, so that you get good support if anything happens. And if you want to know more about coffee roasting in general, or about other roasting machines, then also come over. Ask me anytime if you have any questions. You find my contact also on the website, roasttravels.com.